Hi everyone, welcome. I'm Carly from Carly's Creative Clay. Today I'm going to be showing you all how to make a giraffe. The reason why I'm not carrying on with the woman that I've been making on previous weeks is because my oven decided that it had finished its life and the heating element blew up. Made all the trip switches go and didn't come back. Obviously it wouldn't, but I won't be getting a new one until Friday, so I've got to start a new project.
Like the music.
Thank you, I like the music. How are you, Arty Hearty Life? Nice to see you.
Jake that said that.
Oh, it's Jake that said that. Hello, Jake. Yes, so I'm without oven at the moment, but fingers crossed we're getting one delivered on Friday. So I'm hoping that it all works fine. So yes, starting out with something from my shop, like I do every week. This was an upcycled vase. So I didn't make the glass vase bit, but I did put a dragon on this side. He's got his tail curled up there, and on the other side of it I made a couple of little gnomes, one with a stick, trying to hide from the dragon and hope it doesn't come round this way. It's some of my earlier work, but I really think it's cute, and from the top you can see they're all pretty chunky 3D. And how I did that was I baked them and then stuck them on with epoxy afterwards.
Article says, Mum's painting, she's doing good.
Oh, cool. Brilliant. I wish I could paint. She's such a good painter, Arty Life is. £25 for this. As always, there's only one of them in the shop, so I won't be making more. Oh, I don't know if you saw in the light, the wings are covered in glitter. You can kind of see it. Kind of, but there, yeah. Glittery winged dragon. Right, so giraffe. As always, as I advise for anyone who's taking on a new sculpting project, go on to Google imagery and look up the thing you're going to sculpt. So I look up photographs and I look up toys and cartoons and drawings and that sort of stuff. I actually very rarely look up other people's versions made out of polymer clay because I don't want it to influence the way I sculpt. But this is the set of pictures I got for our giraffe. Oh, he's just loading it up. There you go, giraffe. So I've got a side shot for us. I've got a face on. Then I've got a very simplified cartoon and a teddy bear, just so I got an idea of different ways I can do it. Now that can go, please. And I dug out little giraffe model kids toys made of plastic. I have a lot of them. My collection is by no means complete, but I find them very, very useful for working on scale. And I've made up a base and a heart like I always do from swirly clay, and I get the crystal hearts off of eBay. And I've done the smaller of the two giraffes that I want to make. So this is what I've got so far. Let's move it out the way so you can see properly on the background. It's very cute, and the difficult part on a giraffe with polymer clay is that neck. And it took me a bit of fiddling to work out how to do this, but I think I've found a sneaky little way of getting it so that there's a cocktail stick in there, even though if you look underneath there is no hole going through. It doesn't look like I've smoothed a hole in. And that's the trick here. So that's what I'm gonna be showing you, is the bigger version of that. So I made up the pale yellow, and what I've done with that is I've mixed ochre and white, you don't have to be very exact on it. If you look online, there's a lot of different shades of giraffe colour, and their spots are completely unique to each giraffe. It's like our fingerprints, so you've got a lot of liberties on spot shape and size. So what I've done is I mixed up a brown with some orange to make the spot colour, because I found that it definitely had more of the orange tone to it. When you mix brown with white, you do get it a lot lighter, but what you end up with is, let's dig some out, there we go, a kind of faded. When you start adding orange into brown, that's one of the colours that really show up. Red is another one that gives a really good brown that's different. But if you're lightening colours, sometimes it's not always white that's the best thing to lighten it down with, and that really goes with experience. So I've got the spot colour, but I wanted to make sure that I got the mane and the tail as a darker brown, because they are in real life a darker brown. So for this, it was the standard brown with a very small pinch of black added, mixed in. So that's what we need, and some black and white for the eyes. Now we need the cocktail stick. That's the first thing. You get your clay. I'm gonna take a little ball off, and that's for things like the ears and the eyelids. You probably don't even need that much, but you don't want to divide it from the mane, because this main bit is going to make the whole body and head and neck and legs all in one. So roll yourself out into a ball like I've got here. Obviously you got to condition the clay. If you hear the term conditioning, it's not adding anything, it's just rolling it out into sticks, bringing it back in together without trapping air, and doing that a few times to mix in the plasticizer, the chemical that keeps the clay soft. You don't just have to do this for hard clay only, even soft clay you need to condition. So I brought it into a ball, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to allocate some clay for the neck and the head. So quite a decent sized chunk. We're looking at just over the halfway mark, and I'm just starting to squeeze it and bring it into a separate bit like this, and you just keep turning it round and pushing with the 4 fingers. So you push, spin, until we're decently thick, but we definitely got a separate bit. So that's what we're looking at. Now at this stage, I'll get a drink. This is when we're going to put the cocktail stick in. So we're going to work out a neck length that we would like. I reckon I'm going to probably go a little bit over half, because our little one is a little bit under half. So about there. If you snap it, you're going to get a jagged edge and it's harder to push on. You want a flat side. So either get a pair of scissors or get some wire cutters and just snip it like that. Can you see how you get a nice flat surface? Because we're going to need to push that up. If I snapped it and you got that jagged edge, it's harder to get purchased, so it's worth doing that stage. I tell you this because the first time I tried it, I did just snap off what I didn't want, and I made a job for myself. So what I'm looking for is a pokey stick. That's a technical term, that is. I'm using a ball tool, and you want one that's roughly the same size as the stick, so you can push on the end of it like that, but it's not going to create too big a hole behind it. Yeah. And pokey sticks can be all sorts of things. You can even use the other side of the cocktail stick to push it in. So scavenge around your house, bits of wire, knitting needles, yeah, all sorts of bits. You'll be amazed. You'll find things all over the place that turn into art tools. Now, this is the bit that's you can possibly mess it up with. What you're trying for is you're going to push through, and you want to get that stick as centered in the middle of that pressed in bit as possible. So we're going in the middle there, pushing it up, and you do kind of get a feel for where the stick is, especially if you hold around that thin bit. I can feel I'm not totally centered there, and you'll find that stick, it's stopping there. It needs to go higher. So, hi Fairy Hedgehog. I'm just pushing it, making sure there's no air gaps there. This is when we're going to get this pokey stick, and we're going to continue pushing that in a little bit further, about there. You don't want to go out the head, so you've got to make sure you're visualizing how long that stick is. So it's definitely in a bit. Then you're going to push round from the top down the neck, and we're pushing the clay onto that stick so there's not a big air pocket before we close that up, because we want to push the air out of that hole. So we're working up through that ball, and then we start to bring it in. Can you see I'm smudging the inside before I'm bringing the outside closed, so there's no trapped air by doing that. Then we're going to bring that back into the ball shape it was before and smooth it off. See, you would not know that anything happened to that, like that. Yeah, so now we've got a nice stronger supported ball with a stick. So now we're going to get started on that body shape and the legs. So first we're going to bring it out a bit that way, because the neck tends to be towards the front and the back comes sort of backwards like a horse. I'm not putting in any detail yet on things like spine being pinched in. I'm just getting that rough body shape, and we're going to start by making legs. So front side where you'd want a leg, same way you made that ball, you're just going to do the same thing again by twisting out a little stick, and that's going to be your first leg. We will get back to that and make it look a bit neater. I want it to go over so it's in line with that, so I'm just pushing it into place where I want it, about there, like that. You're in the right place now, possibly a little more forward, so you can, once you've got it, you can move it around a bit. Right, leg number 2, so the clay next to it, like this, pinching out that bump, and you want to try and get it so it's the same roughly as the first one. You can smooth all this out later, so we've got more to do with those legs. We're just allocating clay. Right, up the back you're doing the same again, pinching out for a back leg and pinching out another back leg, like this. So we've now got roughly the right shape. I will get onto some giraffe facts for you. People who come and watch regularly will know that I tend to talk a bit about the animal that I'm making, and there's some interesting things about a giraffe, but we're at that stage. So it can roughly stand up, but if you notice, these legs are quite floppy. So especially on a bigger one that we're going to want to take a longer leg to, I advise you get some florist wire. Let's see, that's pretty straight. Not massively thin. What do we say? It's about a 2 point something or other, 2.5, 2.7. Not certain. But when you go onto eBay, if you're looking at florist wire, the thickest that they give you in the numbers is probably the best one to go for. And how you know which ones are the thickest, it's the smallest number is the thicker piece. The higher the number, the thinner the wire. Right, we want it roughly the length we want the legs. So maybe a little longer, about that long. We want 4 of these. So make sure you're getting the same length. Rest them together. You can also use your counter to do that like this. Right, whilst I'm cutting this, let's give you some giraffe facts. They live in North and West Africa. First interesting bit that I came to, there are 4 distinct species of giraffe, and they are so genetically different from each other. They don't seem to interbreed, which kind of seems to suggest that they came up independently of each other, which is really, really odd. Their nearest living relative is the okapi, which is a very odd animal all on its own. It's like someone's taken a zebra, a horse, and a camel and smushed them all together. Very, very recent discovery, that one. If for a long time it was counted in the realm of cryptozoology, and then they've officially got one and marked it up. I think it was the 80s that they discovered that. So yeah, big animals still out there to find. But right, back to giraffes. They can eat up to 45 kilograms of food, generally acacia trees, and because of their height and the amount they eat and the fact that they take a nibble from a tree and then go to another one, and I explain about that because they're in a chemical warfare fight with the tree. They
asks, what is cryptozoology?
Right, cryptozoology is the study of animals that are not known to science yet. So they're either animals that are counted as extinct, that people think there is a living,
like that fish, what was
the coelacanth, that they thought was extinct, and then they found a whole bunch of them. Then you go into the very, very strange, like Dogman and Bigfoot and Mothman, and so the very sort of strange side of things. The cryptozoologists I've listened to on YouTube, and there's a lot of them, they go into 2 categories. They're either looking for extinct things that they think are still running around, or they go for the mythical side of things. They don't tend to do both, but it's very interesting.
interesting.
But yeah, the okapi, it was talked about by the tribal people because they live in a forest, and scientists were like, well, we've not seen it, so it mustn't exist, it must just be tribal myth. And then someone brought one back and that's quite a myth. But yeah, it was the 80s. They were pretty certain that it wasn't a thing until it was an actual thing. So it's really hard to write stuff off. I mean, I've listened to a lot of varying accounts of Bigfoot. And
says your hair looks lovely.
thank you. I got a haircut recently. I think it was yesterday. Yeah. I was getting very long and shaggy and awful. If, as you see, I'm putting in these sticks so that they're just up where the just past the leg, so where the joint will be, and it means that I can extend the leg down a bit more and give it that long leg look that you want from your giraffe. And all I'm doing, I'm not tugging, I'm doing little twists. If you just pull the clay, you tear it, but doing that sort of twist and wiggle, that does it fine. It doesn't matter if they stick at the bottom a bit, because we're going to put hooves on at a later point. So yeah, 4 to 5 meters high.
Do you need to compare it to the other giraffe to check the leg length?
I've done littler legs on the other giraffe, so I've not pinned that in, because babies tend to have smaller legs.
That makes sense.
They get a bit longer as you grow up. It's hard work being a baby giraffe. You've got to walk within seconds, and the mothers give birth standing up, and so there's this big old drop. And interestingly enough, zoos thought they were going to be really, really kind, and when they knew giraffes were giving birth, they would catch the baby so that it didn't have to hit the ground like that. And they found pretty quickly that the baby had breathing problems and heart problems, that evolution had made it so the impact of hitting the ground jolted the baby's heart so that it beat it properly, and the knock cleared the lungs and made them take their first breath. So now if you watch zoo programs and there's a giraffe birth, they literally leave them to get on with it unless there's real complications. And I have heard people say, well, why would you do that? You know, you could easily help them not have such a hard start in the world. Unfortunately, they need it.
Amazing.
I know. Nature is so awesome. So, we got the legs. They're roughly the same length. Now, we're going to need to decide on neck positioning. What I want this mum to be doing is to lean down and be nuzzling or licking her baby. So, I don't need to bring the neck in their normal standing position. When a giraffe stands up normally, the neck goes far more upright. If you can see, I've really angled that up, and then the head goes quite down, and that's their normal shape. I mean, did you know giraffes have the same number of vertebrae as humans? They're just longer. So technically a giraffe does not have more bones in its neck than you do.
Just bigger ones.
Just yeah, bigger ones. So I'm just pinching that head into more of a head shape, being careful not to snap the neck. And we want to bring that muzzle very down. They really do, can you see, they do tend to have a very sharp join.
I know a thing about giraffes, although it's a bit esoteric. Did you know giraffes' vocal nerve, the nerve that activates their, I think it's larynx, goes from their brain all the way down with all the other nerves, loops around their heart, and then comes all the way back up the neck to their voice box.
Yeah. Did you guys hear that? Right, what he said was a giraffe's, the nerve that controls their vocal cords, it goes all the way down their neck, loops around their heart, and comes all the way back up again. It's one of the longest nerves going. Right, I cut off a bit of that forehead because it was a bit too bulky, and I'm just pushing out those bump lines.
Nobody heard. Said it now.
Right, well, that's what he said. They've got a whole huge long vocal cord that goes down past their heart, which seems a little bit excessive to me. Right, what I want to do is give this giraffe a more bulging cheek look. So what I'm going to do is hold the muzzle there and just push back. Can you see how pushing it back pushes the clay, so you've got a little bit more cheek going on there, like that. And just fiddle around and use the pictures that you've got to check the sort of shape. Now that nose really does come in there and bulge out, so pinch along, push back. It's a fiddle game and you will get there, but you can see why I say it's important to have something to have a look at, because it's very, very easy to get it wrong. And if I didn't look at that, I would have just done a straight triangle nose rather than that inwards outwards bump, which seems to be very much giraffe face. And that does look right to me.
Looks good to me.
Yeah, so at that sort of height we're going to have hooves.
Can you show us the two side by side?
So like that. Yeah, right, we're now going to go on to do some of these spots. That's the next stage. So we're going to get our brown, and what I do is I use the smallest ball tool, but you can use a needle tool or a cocktail stick. I'll show you how to do it with a cocktail stick. We're going to pinch off some of that brown. It doesn't matter shape and size, but I'm going to use my desk and smudge it out very thin, like that. Then using the cocktail stick, we're going to go around and just jag it up, take a bit off there, jag it up some of those edges, and use the blade, take it off the board, and can you see it looks more bumpy. If you leave it, there we go, see, so jaggedy bumpy sort of edge. If you leave it too thick, the clay, then it's going to have these big sticking out bumps. Now you just literally got to add them on in random places. Try not to misshape what you've done already. So there we go, another one kind of jagged looking, like that. And I found this really therapeutic, especially if you've got a lot on your mind. Just going around and making little spots. It is very, very calming. And some of these little sticky off bits that come off, don't gather them up as scrap, because as you can see on this one, I've done a few little dots as well, and that works really, really well. Things just to make it not look so uniform, because you can just do, like on the teddy bear, little round circles. Here, bring the image back up of the, can you see the bottom right hand corner, the teddy? They've just literally done circles. That is an option. It's a stylized option that you may want to go with. But I like the more realism of the jaggedy bumps look, because that seems to be more in line with what they actually have. Now, luckily for us, the very underside of the tummy, they don't have spots generally, so we haven't got to get in there with any into the real fiddly bit. which, thank you, nature. That's so helpful. But yeah, this takes a whole bit of time. I'm going to just do the neck so you can see. And that will allow me to do the hair after. I can do the rest of the body off camera if I'm boring. Because we don't want to bore people. So there we go. I'm just going to pick up some of these small bits that are left. Put a bit there. Put a bit there. See, it's amazing how quick it all comes together. And once you run out, oops, there's a small bit here. I can put you.
Fairy Hedgehog says you're never boring.
Thank you. But I worry doing 20 minutes of adding dots might change that analysis somewhat. So can you see I'm smudging it out really quite thin. This is a millimetre or so, and smudging it onto a glass board like this allows you to pull clay off. Do watch you don't cut yourself with the blade. Allows you to pull clay off and get that sort of scrappy look without it sliding all over the place. I really don't know what clayers did before they used tissue blades, because they are just so useful.
Probably use normal knives.
It doesn't get in and do the scraping that you need. That's,
I mean, if you don't have tissue blades,
yep.
a knife is better than nothing.
And it's interesting, they're called tissue blades. I googled why that is. It's because they're actually designed for when they're doing samples to put under microscopes, especially of skin samples. They use sharp blades like this to get those very thin slices. So it was designed for medicine, not for claying. There we go. I'm just making sure that I'm putting in enough. I want one that looks. The other thing, instead of pulling off, you can just push in to get a more bumpy look. So just play around with what you want your spots to look like, and don't overthink it. There is no wrong spot. So you really can just be kind to yourself. So I'll do a few more of these. Let's give you a few more facts about giraffes. They can run up to 35 miles an hour, which is kind of understandable when you look at those legs. They're pretty long. They've got a whole bunch of different blood vessels from us, so that when they need to drink or bend their head down, they don't just faint. Because the problem with having a neck that long is it really does cause problems when you try to bend down. So they've made it so they only drink every couple of days. They get most of their water from the acacia trees that they eat. And they do this sort of front leg splay bow, and they have to be pretty quick about it because they don't want to stay down like that for too long. They are really amazingly, they're power nappers basically. They're really good at not sleeping much. They sleep for up to 2 minutes at a time, having half-hour sleep a day. I wish I could get by on that. The amount I could do in my life if all I needed was half-hour a day. I thought they would do a thing like dolphins where half their brain goes to sleep and then the other half goes to sleep once that side's woke up. Because you really can't, with this sort of setup, just lay down. If you lay down, it completely messes with all your blood pressure. So I think I better go up and do some around the eyes and nose, just so that I can show you how I do those bits, because you got to get the spots on before you lay the eyelids and eyes on. So I'm just going to put a little bit around where I'm going to put the eye in, so like that. Now, so the bits that I need to go over, I've covered in brown spotted clay. But I assure you, off camera, what I'm going to do is literally do that and just keep going over and do all the body. So up the legs, under the chin, round the head, the whole thing.
Auntie Life says, I love how the spots look like paint splodges.
Yeah, you really, it's very, very easy to get distracted and spend half your time looking at it and going, oh, that one looks like a boy on a little sled. And let's have a look. That one looks like the top of an ice cream cone, the swirl. And yeah, you end up doing that for ages.
Like clouds.
Yep, it's like cloud gazing. So, I'm going to go in, put lots of spots on, is what I'm getting at.
Auntie Life says, go on, do some more.
Do some more. He's only got a few. What about baby? That one looks like a heart, like a human heart. If I cut that bit off, that's starting to get a bit British Isles looking. Ooh, look at this one. It's a baby lamb with a bit of string in its mouth.
Which one?
That spot there. So that's the ear of the lamb. Neck, front leg, body, back leg, a little bit of string in its mouth. No?
Can't see it, I'm afraid. Auntie Life says, no, put some more on. As in, do more.
Oh! Really? Okay. I'll carry on doing.
Oh, yes. Auntie Life said, oh, yes. I see it. Auntie Life sees it.
You do? Cool.
I don't. Sorry.
I used to love that. I still do it as an adult, that whole go outside, gaze at clouds thing. If you're ever lacking in inspiration on what to sculpt or paint, go look at the clouds. The first thing you recognise, that's what you're making. It's a bit of a risky way of doing it, because you can really see anything, but it's a good game. You can end up with some really interesting art pieces with subjects that you would never have actually made.
Says, do one shaped like a fire-breathing dragon. Just kidding.
Right, let's see.
I think that would be tricky.
Let's go head, body, and a long tail. I'm going to need to sculpt. Right, like that. And like this.
Auntie Life says lol.
Neck.
Fairy Hedgehog says ruffle.
There we go. That's the tail. Let's bring that in like that.
Is that going to be too big?
What do you reckon? Let me focus. Little tail, little body, flame at the front. Yeah? Right. I'm going to put that where the My Little Ponies have their cutie marks.
Auntie Life says roar.
It hasn't got legs.
Roar.
Let's give it a couple of little legs and see if anyone else notices this. We go front leg. Whoop. There we are. Front leg. And back leg. Bring that towel into more of a point. What do you reckon?
That's really good.
Now, I wonder if whoever buys this will spot that and go, I wonder if that looks like a dragon. You and me, we will know. You just go, no, it's amazing what you see from just splodges, isn't it? Oh, talking of which, my little 3-year-old nephew, I have had the most interesting milestone that I was able to witness over the weekend. He has just discovered that lying is a thing. It never occurred to him that you could say something that wasn't the truth. And he's like, oh, that's amazing. And he's trying it out. And he's terrible at it. He will say, me and my sister were walking down the street. We went for a little walk. And he goes, Auntie Carly said I could have chocolate. And she goes, when? When did she say that? He goes, a little bit ago. She's like, she stood next to me. We've been out all this time. No. Just no. She's dealing with it in a very good way. She's saying, instead of being... I know. Isn't it adorable? Instead of getting upset that he's lying, because he doesn't know what he's doing is wrong yet, he's 3. She's saying, I know that you're not telling the truth. If you wanted chocolate, why not try and ask for it? That may be more successful. And if it's something he would have got a yes for had he not lied, he would get a yes for it when he asks. If it was going to be a no all along, then, no. But he's working out pretty quickly that it's not successful, but he thinks it's so interesting and fun. I mean, we all must have had that in our life. That day when we realised that something we said, no one knows that it weren't true. That must have been the most crazy day at nursery. I wish I had memories back when I was that young. But yeah, I thought I'd be there for all the normal milestones, and I'm around for things like potty training. But yeah, first ever time lying. Just awesome. So much fun. Right, we're getting a head almost in here. So I'll cover his head. Then at least you can say you've seen that bit done. But I will share on Facebook once I get him finished and baked, once the oven's up and running. So I'm just taking off little chunks and I'm pushing them on. And I want some little bits in there, so don't forget, smudge it around. You don't want all boxy sort of shapes, unless that's the style you're going for, which I'm not. Almost there. And once I've got all of these on, I can do nostrils, because they have little dark nostrils, which is adorable. And you got to put it in, really, if they're going to have such a cute feature. Now they were getting a little bit big, so I was just pushing them on and making sure they're flat.
Have you seen the movie about the guy who invented lying? I think it's called The Invention of Lying.
I haven't seen that. It sounds fun. I think I might have to dig this out. So fingers crossed it's on Netflix, and then that would mean life is a lot easier for me, because I'll find it.
Says, in a world where no one lies. So he invented lying in a world where no one lies.
That is so cool. That sounds interesting. I think I'm going to have to go and find that. Thank you for putting me on to that. Right, I'm going down. I'm not doing under the chin. I'm going down. I'm leaving the 2 spots where I want to put a nostril. So like that. So there we go. We've got the head pretty covered there. I'm going to take my nightgown off because now I've started working, strangely enough, I'm boiling. Really nice soft nightgown. I got it from Asda. It's lovely. Right, so with that far, if your head is going very floppy like that, just push on it and it'll just stick into that now. And can you see it's firm again?
Says that happens to me too. I assume she means getting too hot.
Getting too hot, yeah.
Having a floppy neck.
It's manual labour, all this. It's physical work. Right, so let's make sure we've got everything how we want. I'm going to just bring that up a little more because it seems to have gone a little less than I want. There we go. I want Mama to have a long enough neck, so like that. Right, so it's really up to you where you want to go with it next. I'm going to do nose, mouth, eyes, then mane, but any of the next bits can be done in pretty much any order that you want. So it really is your choice. So for nose, I'm going to get my little needle tool. Let's move my rolling pin out the way. There we go. You need your pin tool. You're going to take off the same colour that you've done for the spots. You want two really tiny little bits of brown, like that sort of little. Yeah, tiny. Now when you're dealing with clay that small, moving it around on the tip of the pin is helpful, but you can find that it's hard to get it off. So you picked it up like that and you go to put it down, and it actually did that time, but can you see it doesn't want to get off? What you do is you put the pin onto your hand and then you roll it and pull back, and that rolling motion takes it off.
This painting isn't that physical at home. The most active I get is opening a stubborn tube of paint. I still get warm though.
It's body movement, you're putting the blood flow around. It's not the same as going for a jog, certainly, but it's not completely sedentary. So I'm putting those two dots where I think the nose would be. Can you see? Yeah? And then what you're going to do is you're going to get your needle tool and you're going to go into the center of that dot so that it makes a little nostril with the outside looking like the smallest donut in the universe. I'm definitely going to have to show you once I've done it. Can you back a bit, there we go. Can you see I put a hole just in the middle so they make little brown donuts. If you tried to roll out a tiny thin bit of clay and make that loop, you will never get the join to lay right. Do a dot and then stab through it. It's far easier. So, giraffe mouth. And they've got some seriously long tongue. I don't know if any of you's ever got to hand feed a giraffe. I was very lucky I did. Make sure you don't break that neck. Can you see? I'm just starting to get that a little bit lifting up there. So, be careful. And that mouth comes a little bit under that lip, top lip. It sort of overhangs, so you're not coming right up onto the tip. I'll show you once I've carved it in. I know I'm off camera,
not quite,
but I'm trying to get it so that I can see what I'm doing as well. There we go, that's what I want, like that. Can you see? Very broad, wide mouth like that. Once you've got it in, you can then bring it up so that it's the same.
Says, I've never fed a giraffe, but I've cuddled a tiger cub and a lion cub.
Oh, cool.
Oh, he is cute.
So you know tigers, the black stripes, you can feel them, they're raised off the orange. And if you were to shave down a lion and a tiger, that's the only way of telling them apart. Is the lion will actually will look just like a bald cat. The tiger will have black stripes on the skin. But anatomically, if you went into dissecting, they're pretty much exactly the same. You're only really getting differences once you start checking DNA. But yeah, that stripe colour goes all the way down. Right, I'm at that stage. So we've got mouth in, we've got nose in, we need to do some eyes. Now, clean your hands. Let's get one of my wet wipes.
You are amazing.
I've just been on this earth a long time and I have the same level of animal love as you do. When you're bedridden for ages, you do a lot of reading. There's only so much science fiction you can read before you get into animal facts. And when I was a little kid, my dad told me, any problem you have, look to nature to see how to answer it. And now I'm an adult, I know that's not strictly true. But there's a lot of wisdom in nature and there's a lot of interesting things. The fact that different animals have evolved completely separately of each other means that they've come up with different solutions to the same problems, and that's fascinating. I've always liked just finding out more than just the surface. It's helped a lot with things like phobias. So I've owned a snake. I don't particularly have any spider issues. The only thing I'm phobic of is biting insects like mosquitoes and gnats, because I was hospitalised as a small child by them. The stuff that they have in their saliva that means you don't feel it, a local anaesthetic, I got bit several hundred times and basically was being poisoned by it. Something about me, I don't know what, they absolutely love me. And it sounds paranoid, but my husband can tell you, he's watched it. Mosquito, actually, sorry, I'm just putting the eyes in, make sure that they're level with each other, everything's symmetrical, yeah? He's watched a mosquito chase me around a room, ignoring everyone else. Literally steering around people to carry on following me. I don't understand. It's awful. But there we have it. So that high-pitched buzzing noise, and weirdly enough, I know logically if you can hear the mosquito, it's not the one that bites you. It's the females that bite because they need the blood supply to go and make eggs. They don't make that high-pitched whining noise that you hear from the male mosquito wings.
But where there's one, there may be.
But I'm still hardwired, programmed in to that sound.
I thought you meant biting insects, as in eating insects.
Oh no, like mosquitoes and gnats and midges and that whole lot. Even things like horseflies.
Can you go forward?
Right. So I'm just making sure that I'm putting the eyes in so that they're both looking down a little and forward, so that when it looks down at the baby, they're both looking at the same point. There's no sort of boss-eyedness going on. Yeah? Now, at that point, it looks startled. We need a top eyelid. You can just go for the startled look. That's an entirely reasonable artistic approach, but what I'm going to do is take tiny little bit like that to the same size, so you've got two eyelids that are the same. Let's move those out the way like this, roll them into little balls, and
I was imagining you turning down a place on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here.
oh yeah, I totally would. And even to annoying things, my love of animals, I would love to go to Africa and see the great migrations and all the animals, or to the Galapagos Islands, but they've all got serious amounts of mosquitoes.
Life said for dietary reasons, as in they were imagining you not wanting to go on that show because you end up eating insects.
Eating insects. I'm not actually that bothered by that. Right, this top eyelid, we are curving it round the top of the eye. So we're putting the back in so that it's almost flat. Can you see, like that? Am I on? Yeah. Right, flat towards the back. And then we curve it over and bring it to the edge. So you get that sort of raised, bumped top eyelid like that. See? That's what you're looking for. And again on the other side. I think, to me, eating insects is in the future of meat eaters. The carbon footprint of things like cow and pork and lamb and all that is very high. The amount of land that you need to not abuse the animals. Insects live in closer space. The protein is lower fats. It's healthier for you. You can produce far more in the same time frame.
I think you might be right if it wasn't for tube grown.
I think we might end up with lab grown meat. That's where I'm hoping for, but I do think insect protein will end up being a thing. I don't think you're going to get a pile of crickets. You'll end up with something that's a lot like corn, where they pre-make stuff. But apparently it's not that bad. Most insects taste a little bit like almonds, apparently. So there the eyes in. See? Whoop. And just putting that top eyelid in just makes it look a lot better. So
Part Healthy Life says, I think you're probably right, but I will have to be an old stick in the mud on that one. I have to agree. It's going to be a
difficult thing. I think we'll end up with the lab grown meat rather than the insects. That's where my money's at, because they're almost there with it all. They've got very, very, very good replicas, but it's too expensive for mass production at the moment, so they just got to get the production cost down. I think there has been some in Iceland, burgers that was lab grown or something like that. Didn't your brother say? Right.
I think so.
2 balls, the same size. We're going to twist the top so it's in a teardrop shape. Just slightly tap it down because you want a decent amount of thickness to it. Just put a slight point to the bottom, so that shape. Now we're looking for
Life says I can handle lab grown meat but not insects.
Yeah,
I think I agree.
Something with a point like that. I think lab grown meat, once that becomes the main norm, there's going to be a very interesting black market open up.
What, for real meat?
For lab grown stuff that's on the weird side, like endangered animals or extinct animals, or then there's the whole craziness. Can you eat lab grown human? And because all the negatives of cannibals is about hurting and killing a human eating it. If it was a lab grown,
I can't even eat mussels and oysters.
Yeah, but you know there's clubs of people who want to eat the weirdest things.
Kangaroo.
That already exists. There's quite a market for unusual stuff like kangaroo and crocodile and gazelle and that sort of stuff. If it becomes easy to lab grow and they want to try and get a lot of buyers, they'll go down the novel path. have a T-Rex steak, have a dodo steak, you know, crazy stuff like that. Because they can, and it will earn some money. So, we've got the ears. You want something with a kind of pointed shape to it. And just push it in and roll the sides around. And that's how, you saw how I did that. So you're pushing it in like that. And we'll just pull the sides up and around. And it gives you that good ear shape. Right. Now, next we've got to do are the two little horns. Both male and female have those. And it is used for protection and for fighting. They tend to do headbutting. They'll knock you with their heads when they want to fight. The males literally stand next to each other, facing each other. And it's like playing conkers, but with their necks and head. And that's how they decide on females. They don't tend to do proper solid family groups like a lot of mammals. So they're bonded very much to their young, but everyone else in their herd they're not so bothered about. Herds aren't stuck with for life. They will move from one group to another group very easily, and it's normal for them. Yeah, that was what I was going to tell you about. The chemical warfare between acacia trees and giraffes. And it's so interesting. So yeah, little horn spikes like that. Then we're going to use the larger ball tool at the base of the ear. Pick it up there. And we're going to add them in to the side like that. Maybe back like that. That's better. So you can either face them forwards or face them back and then smooth them in a bit. But it both looks, either way, you'll attach in here and it'll look fine. Like that. Now, whilst I put the other ear in, I'll tell you about this war. What happens is the acacia tree, when it feels that it's being eaten, it will send out a chemical that makes it release a poison. It's like a toxin. And that chemical, it is, not only does it send it to the rest of the tree, it puts it airborne. So all the trees in a little circle around the one being eaten gets that warning and says, put toxins in your leaves, you're under attack. So a giraffe or any of the herbivores around Africa, they can take a few mouthfuls from a tree and then they have to walk a bit and go to another one. Because once the plant feels it's no longer under attack, it will start removing the toxins again from its leaves. That's why they've got such a nomadic life. So, just with those ears in, and those little horn spikes, it really does look more giraffe. Yeah, we need little hoofs and we need a mane. So let's get a mane on first. That's a darker brown. And then, oh, and we need a tail. Really important. You don't want to miss a tail. Now.
That's fascinating.
Yep. Most of the advances that evolution takes is because there's a pressure. So there's a predator around, so we need to start seeing and having sensory organs. So they start to develop. The giraffe's long neck, because there's so much competition for lower level plants that it needed to get to the higher trees. It's all about competition. Predator against prey. The same sort of eating habits, both all competing for each other, that sort of stuff. If everything's working out and there's no pressure, they don't develop unless there is a weird genome comes up and it's a mutation. But normal changes is due to competing pressures. Right, got a mane in. I'm just going to make it so there's not that big bump, that it lays down to a point. Can you see? Like that. If you're extra fancy, you can go in with a pair of little nail scissors and diagonal snip along it, and then that will give a more hair-like look. But I haven't done that with the baby, so I'm not going to do that with the mum. So we've got the mane in. The other thing that needs to be put on is the two little dark dots at the top of their horns, because they tend to... Can we get the picture up of the one with its head facing forward? Can you see the top of their horns has darker hair on it? So what I tend to do is put a little blob.
One day an acacia will get a whiff of giraffe approaching and quickly retract its leaves.
There are some plants that do that. If you watch David Attenborough's Life in the Undergrowth, there are plants that move away from predators, that close and open and follow the sun round and things like that. It's amazing what they managed to find out about that. And plants are far more complex than we think. I mean, they don't seem to do the whole emotion thing and have sentiency, but they certainly communicate with each other and support each other, especially things like fungal systems. They're one of the biggest living bodies on this planet is a fungal network through, I can't remember which forest, I think it's somewhere in Sweden, but it's literally a whole forest. If you go under the ground, it's completely connected by one massive line of tendrils, a fungal system, and it will move nutrients and fluids around and all sorts of things, and it seems to actually be keeping that forest going.
I know, it's so fascinating.
Right, they don't have a lot of towel, so we're doing a very little one, and the excess, instead of cutting it down, I'm putting it higher up the back, and I'm just going to smooth it in. And how I do that is the side of my ball tool, I just literally roll that in like that. So you're not just looking at your tools for the tips of them, how they're designed to be used. You can also use the handles and the sides of them, but this can be done with a knitting needle or a larger ball tool or all sorts of things like that. So we've got a towel in. Before we bring that down to lay right, I'm going to make some tiny little stranded hairs to put at the end, so he's got the darker towel hairs, just by taking little bits of clay, and I'm rolling them out into sticks with a tip at the end and pushing them next to each other, about 4 or 5 of them. Right, I think I've done all my oh no, I've not done all my facts on my giraffe. It's about making the babies. You've got 2 years between births, and gestation, get this, 15 months. So that whole 9 months pregnancy that humans have, you imagine 15-month pregnancy. Ugh, I bet by the last few months they're done. They're like, I'm just no, I want my body back. So can you see, I've just gathered them up, and at the tip I'm just making sure they're joint on the end that I'm gonna stick them to. Now I'm not trying to push them onto the tip like that, because that will just smudge that towel. What I'm gonna do is I put my thumb behind that tip and push them like that. Let's bring that up. Can you see the brown overlaps on there? I pushed it onto the surface. and then I can bring that down and it looks just as good, but the difference is it won't fall off. Whereas if you try and push it onto the bottom, it almost never holds. So we've got the tail, we've got the mane, we've got the nose. All we need now is a couple of little hoofs. So 4 little balls the same size as each other. Here we go. Yeah, so lots of interesting giraffe facts out there, and I didn't even get them all, but I think you know more about animals than I did at your age, Jake. So you're in line to be a complete walking encyclopedia like I am.
Fairy Hedgehog says, looking good.
Yeah, it really is. So 4 little balls, we're going to smooth out those join lines so they're nice smooth balls. Now, what is instinctive to do is to put the ball as a ball onto the foot and then smudge it flat. What you in risk of doing is buckling the leg if you do that. So I push it slightly flat so it's got that thick disc shape that I want for the hoof, and then just lightly add it on like that. So don't try and get that disc shape by smushing it onto the leg. So ball, push it a little bit flat so it's got that disc shape, push it on, support the leg. You don't want to buckle that leg because it will be really annoying to try and get it back at this stage.
Hardy Life says Jake's gone, it's just me.
Oh, hello. I hope he's off doing something fun.
Hardy Life said, have you read Hot House by Brian Aldiss?
Possibly, that's ringing a bell, but my memory's saying you don't need that information right now because it's so useful. See, this is the thing, my brain, I can't control what it stores. So I can tell you some really random animal facts. I can't remember much about my wedding day.
Fairy Hedgehogs.
So unuseful.
Ask Hardy Life if it's any good. We'll see how
Right. Once we got that rest of that body covered, what I'm going to do is probably this sort of thing. Then I get the head up, rest that head like that, maybe.
We won't be able to see that. You probably
So,
can't turn it sideways. So you might want to just pose it for a sideways and shot.
what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring that neck up like that so that it's standing like that, then like that, and then I'll put the heart in the middle there.
Hardy Life says it's great classic science fiction, well, fantasy really,
Ear
from
snap.
1962. Did you hear that?
Science
Great
fiction.
Classic science fiction, well, fantasy really, from 1962.
That sounds like my sort of thing. Can you WhatsApp me the name of it at some point?
Yeah. I can just write it down.
Or
Hot House by Brian Aldiss.
Jamie's writing it down, so I don't even need that. Thank you, Jamie. Right, I knocked the little ball off that rhino, the baby rhino, and the ear came off on the adult rhino. But apart from that, it was successful. So yeah, once I finish covering it, I'm going to have a fiddle around and get it so that it's in a position that I like. Then secure it down to the base just by pushing it on, and then I'll bake it. So by next week I will be able to show you the finished set, but that's how you make giraffes.
Fairy Hedgehog says I'll give it a look.
So I hope you all have a good week, and I'm going to have a good one because this Friday I've got a fair on at the Children's Trust, so fingers crossed that goes well. And I will see you all next Wednesday. Okay, have a great week.